I'm Elizabeth at A Literary Princess, and today I'm doing my mid-year reading stats. So I saw Shelley Swearingen do this not too long ago, and I thought that's a great idea for a video, and I have been keeping a whole Google spreadsheet of my reading, and I've got graphs and things, and I will say I did not make these. This was made by Elaine Howland, who has a channel here as well as a blog that I read. So I will link her down below so that you can all check her out. So many thanks to her for making this spreadsheet, because it has made it super easy for me to just keep track of things in a way that is more customizable than what Goodreads or StoryGraph allows me to do. Goodreads doesn't allow for half-star ratings, and sometimes the genre's on there, like, what are you doing? And this allows me to put in my own page counts so that it is matched up exactly to what my editions of the book is. I'm going to talk about the stats. I'm going to show some graphs up here. And then I think I will also do what Shelley did, which is talk about some of the highest and lowest ratings on Goodreads for the books that I've read and whether I agree with those or not. I have read a total of 50 books so far. That means that I have met my Goodreads goal, which was 50 books. Yay! That's not a lot for me usually. I mean, by mid-year that's really good, but I usually set my Goodreads goal more like 100, but I didn't make it last year, so I was just like, we're setting it low so that I can feel good about myself, which is terrible. Total pages I have read this year is 18,014. I've spent on average 4.5 days per book, which tracks. I've had some that I finish in a day, and then we've got Disorientation over there with 59 days. Ugh. My average page count has been about 360.3 pages, which that tracks. You'll see I'm gonna do like more breakdowns of these. These are just the general ones, but as you'll see, I'm mostly in the 300 to 400 range for book lengths. My average rating is 3.8. I think that is up from what it was last year, but I mean, the year's only half over, so or a little bit more than half. I have read an average of 49.2 pages per day. So, okay, that seems all pretty good. Let's talk first about genre, and I have broken this down into, I don't even know how many genres this is, and I'm not going to take the time to count. Who am I kidding? Yes, I am. I've broken this down into 14 genres so far, and I've just been kind of adding as I need. I definitely tweaked it from what was in the spreadsheet originally, but I've just been, if I'm like, I need a new genre in here, I've just been adding it. Books do overlap in these, so a book can be both a young adult and fantasy. So the genres are horror, poetry, children's, fantasy, contemporary, graphic novel, young adult, sci-fi, literary fiction, mystery/thriller, classics, nonfiction, retelling, and romance. Now, of course, nonfiction I could break down even further, but for the sake of not making this ridiculous, I decided not to. The most read genre I actually have is nonfiction. I've read 16 nonfiction books, so 32% of the books I have read have been nonfiction, and that's because of my exams, by far. I'll read a bit of nonfiction usually, but not like this. So thank you, feminist theory, for making this my #1 genre of the year so far. Coming up, not too far behind, is classics. I have read 14 classics for 28% of the books I have read. Once again, exams. I read a lot of classics anyway, but reading for my exams has definitely bumped that up quite a bit. Coming in third is contemporary with 11 books for 22% of the books I have read. And then the other big one has actually been young adult. I've read 10 young adult books, which is 20%, which I think is because toward the beginning of the year, like during my winter vacation, I was like, I just want to read young adult books that I can read in one day. which was a lot of fun and lovely compared to reading a single book for 59 days. My two lowest genres are romance and sci-fi right now. I've only read one of each of those, so that is 2% for each. And so romance, I'm not counting things like Sense and Sensibility as romance. I only count those as classics. So the romance I have in here is actually Beach Read, which I read at the beginning of July because I needed something chill. I don't usually read a lot of like straight romance books because I don't know, it's usually not my thing. I've tried, I've read a few, I usually don't like them, but I was in the mood, so I partook. Same with sci-fi. I've talked about this before. I don't like sci-fi at all, but there was this Sleeping Beauty retelling. I was like, it sounds good. And it was very soft sci-fi. And then ones that I'm kind of surprised are on the lower end of things are the literary fiction. I've only read 2 pieces of literary fiction for a total of 4%. And then the retellings, I've only read 5, which is 10%. And most of those, I believe, have been in the fantasy genre, which is also at 5 for 10%. So I feel like those are genres I usually read more in, but probably because of my exam reading and reading all these classics and nonfiction, they've been kind of pushed out. As I said, most of my books fall within the 300 to 399 page category. I have read 19 of those. Coming up second is the 200 to 299 with 12. And then coming third is 400 to 499 with 8 books. So I feel like that's pretty normal, like reading a book between 200 and 500 pages, like that's a normal book length. I've read 2 books that are under 99 pages. Those were both poetry. And I've read 2 that are between 800 and 900 pages. And that was Daniel Deronda and The Second Sex. And I am pleased with myself. Very, very pleased with myself for that. Nothing over 1,000 pages because, God, I don't have time for that shit right now. And nothing between 900 and 1,000 either. But I mean, hey, Daniel Deronda and The Second Sex, those are both considered mammoths because they're over 800 pages. So I got 2 of them. I'm done. Wonderful. Let's talk ratings. So I rate between 5 stars and 1 star. Although some books I wish I could give 0 stars to. Most of the books I have read fall into the 4-star category. I have read 17 books that I gave 4-star. I do rate with half stars, so I have 8 books that are 4.5 stars. And then I also have 9 5-star reads, and I think that's pretty good. Like, I'm pretty pleased with that. And I only have 1 1-star read, so that's a relief because that would suck. I do have 3 2-stars, but that's not the end of the world, and 3 2.5 stars, and then 7 3-stars. So that all makes sense considering I've got an average rating of 3.8 right now. Whether it's gonna go up or down is a wonderful question. I think my average rating last year was 3.6, but that was according to Goodreads, which is always a little bit skewed because I can't have my half-star ratings. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully there's no more 1-star. I don't want any more 1-stars. For my books per month, June has definitely been my best month so far with 10 books. I was super pleased with that. I've been averaging 6 to 7 for the most part. So we're in July right now. I'm filming this on July 25th. So I've got 7 books right now that I've finished this month. So if I don't finish anymore, I'm still within my general range for the year. I would love to get back up to 10. I don't know if that's gonna happen with some of the books that I'm reading, but I was super pleased with June. And I'm hoping that I can keep this going. I haven't fallen into a reading slump yet. A lot of times in February, March, and April, I end up in a reading slump, but that has not happened, probably thanks to exams. So as much as I hate these things, they are doing me several favors. But I'm hoping that I don't fall into a slump like after exams are over and I don't have to be reading all of this stuff. So we'll see what happens. Last year my slump was in the summer, but 10 books in June, that's not a slump. We are good. Format, I read in 3 formats: print, ebook, and audiobook, and the vast majority is print. 64% of the books I have read are in print. 34% have been ebooks. This counts for books that are on my Kindle and books that I get from NetGalley, which then go onto my Kindle, and also books that I read on my computer from my university's library. And then 2% have been audiobooks, and I do believe that that is just 1 book as of right now. That was You Will Know Me. Would like to get my audiobooks up a little bit more because I actually do really enjoy listening to them. And it's also a way for me to keep using my public library because I get my audiobooks all on Libby. Speaking of such, let's go to sources. I have 6 different source categories, and I originally had library as just one and included my university and my public library in that, but I wanted to see how much I'm actually using my public library, which has been pretty good so far. So the biggest one is bought, of course. I mean, you know, I have bought 38% of the books that I have read so far this year, but 20% have come from the public library, and then 16% have come from NetGalley, and 10% came from the university library, and 10% were given to me as gifts, and then 6% have been free. And so that I'm counting as I was able to get it online, say on Project Gutenberg or something else like that. So not through my university's library, but still online. Also, I have a bunch of books that I got from, say, my grandmother's house or my in-laws' lake house. And I'm not counting those as gifted because they weren't really gifted. It was more take what you want. So I'm just counting them as free. I do purchase most of my books, and I knew that about myself. But you know what? Some of them were purchased a while ago. Rereads versus new reads, and this has actually really surprised me a lot. I've only reread 2 books so far this year, and I don't think that's normal for me at all. So 48% of the books have been new to me. I think this is partly my exam readings, so the things that I've already read that are on there I don't really need to reread. The Mill on the Floss and Sense and Sensibility have been the 2 that I reread, and I read those a really long time ago. It had been over a decade since Mill on the Floss. Wow. Damn, I think Sense and Sensibility was in college, so it was not quite as long, but it's still been a while and I wanted to refresh myself. So I reread those. I have a few more that I'm going to do that with for my exams. Tess of the D'Urbervilles is a notable one. I'm rereading King Solomon's Mines because even though I read it 2 years ago, straight up don't remember it. Oops. And then I had a few that I wanted to reread, but I don't think I'll get to. I wanted to reread Evelina, but I think I should just let that sit because I didn't read it all that long ago and I do remember it. But I think the number of rereads will grow, but not by much. Arcs versus non-arcs. 8 of my books have been arcs that I got off of NetGalley this year, which is pretty nice. I'm totally down for 8 free books. Hey. And then 42% have been non-arcs. Of course, I'm reading a lot of classics and nonfiction that was written in the 80s and the 90s and sometimes even before that. So obviously those are not arcs, but 8 arcs is pretty good, and I'm currently reading one now, so if I ever finish that, it'll be 9. And then if we count the one that I am currently reading, there's only 2 more that I have that are coming out this year. So Babel by R.F. Kuang and The Tatami Galaxy by Tomohiko Morini. And I straight up have no idea what that is about. But I have another one that is coming out at the beginning of January of next year. But that'll be on next year's list. Unless I read it in December, which I mean, I might, but considering what my track record with my arcs this year has been, probably not. And last but not least, I want to talk about publication year. And I actually added this graph to the spreadsheet, and I had a hell of a time figuring it out, but some lovely people on Tumblr explained it to me, and then I used some Googling to further help myself figure this out, because there is a publication date slot in the main spreadsheet that has all the books, but there was not a corresponding graph in the statistics spreadsheet. So I made my own. And you'll notice that my publication years are kind of weird because I've counted every decade of the 1800s. That's because I'm doing my exam reading and I have my lists that are the long 19th century and then popular Victorian women's writing. So what I'm interested in seeing is which decade of the 1800s I read the most from. As of right now, it's the 1860s with 3 books. Of course, I have a lot more toward the 2000s. So for other years, I counted just the full 1600s and 1700s as by themselves, and I have read 1 book from the 1700s, which was Vindication of the Rights of Women. I've read nothing from the 1600s. For the 1900s, I did 1900 to 1909 by itself because that's still technically part of the Victorian era, kind of. So I'm interested to see about those. Then I grouped the 1910s and 20s together, the 1930s and 40s, the 50s and 60s, and then 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s each got their own. And then I have one for 2020, one for 2021, and one for 2022. The 2 highest categories are for 2022, because that's all those arcs, and then the 2010s. So those have 9 each in there. And then for 2020, I have read 5 books that were released in 2020, only 1 from 2021. I'm kind of surprised that happened, but okay. And then I've read quite a few from the 90s, 5 books from the 90s so far, and 4 books from the 80s. So those are probably a lot of the feminist theory readings. A lot of these are just like 1 or 2, but I'm interested to see how they'll fill out a little bit more as the year continues on. Okay, and now I'm going to talk about what books were highest rated and lowest rated on Goodreads and how my ratings compared to some of those. This I'm looking at, so what's the average rating on Goodreads? And the top 3 of books I've read are the 3 books in the Heartstopper series that I read. So volumes 2, 3, and 4 of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Side note, is it Oseman or Osman? I've always done it Oseman, but I've heard other people saying Osman. Which is it? Tell me in the comments. Anyway, so volume 4 has 4.68 average. Volume 3 has a 4.64 average, and Volume 2 has a 4.61 average. I gave all of these 5 stars, so I absolutely understand why people love these. Yeah, 73% of people gave it 5 stars, 21% of people gave it 4, and 4% gave it 3. This is for Heartstopper Volume 4. Yeah, and nobody gave it 2, and well, not nobody. I say nobody, it says 0%. 929, which apparently counts as nobody, when you have 143,594 5 stars. After those, it's actually another young adult book, You'd Be Home Now by Kathleen Glasgow, which I gave 4.5 stars in my spreadsheet, but only put 4 stars on Goodreads because Goodreads is stupid and doesn't have half stars. So this has an average of 4.9 stars, with 47% of people giving it 5 stars and 36% of people giving it 4 stars. So that's pretty good. And I thought that was a fantastic book and absolutely deserved that. And then some other high ones are In Search of Our Mother's Gardens by Alice Walker with 4.27 stars, and The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman with 4.26 stars. So I'm not overly surprised by any of those. Some that I'm shocked at, that they have high average ratings, whereas I hated them. The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir has an average of 4.14 stars. And I'm like, did we read the same book, folks? Because I gave that 2 stars. And the rating details, yeah, 42% of people give it 5 stars, 36 gave it 4, and then only 1% give it 1 star, and 2% or 3% give it 2 stars. I'm like, did we read the same book? I don't think we read the same book, but okay. Okay, another one that just floored me with how high the average rating was is Disorientation by Elaine Shade Chu. Are we shocked? No, we're not. Because I gave this 1 star. I hated this book so much. I have gone on several rants about it. And the average rating is 3.96. I'm like, that's way too close to 4 stars. And 40% of people have given it 4 stars, with 32% of people giving it 5. And I'm like, did we read the same book? Because that was terrible. Yeah, only 1% have given it 1 star, so 51 people. It has 92% of people liked it, which I don't know if I trust Goodreads for that, because 3 stars means you liked it, and like 2 stars was it was okay. Yeah, it was okay. Goodreads star rating is effed. Like 5 stars is I love it. 4 is really liked it. 3 is liked it. 2 is it was okay, and 1 was hated it or didn't like it. I think it's did not like it. And I'm like, no. 5 is I adored it. 4 is liked it. 3 is neutral. 2 is I didn't like it, but it has merit. And then 1 was it's garbage. Garbage. No offense if you liked it, but I couldn't stand this book. So I'm surprised so many people have liked it. There's 3,343 ratings. So, okay, whatever. Let's go and look at some of the lower rated books. And so the lowest rated one is not a surprise to me. It is Rank and Beauty Volume 1 by Anonymous, which I read, I guess it was in June. And I only read 1 volume of it. There are 2 other volumes. I was like, no, I can't do it. This only has 5 ratings, so the average is 2.6 stars. So 40% of people gave it 1 star, which is 2 people. And then 1 person gave it 2 stars. Hi, that's me. And then 1 person gave it 4 and 1 person gave it 5. I'm like, hell, I gave it a 5. Maybe it gets better in the 2nd and 3rd volumes. But the lowest rated book that people would actually know what it is that I read is You Must Not Miss by Katrina Lena. And I was actually a little surprised by this. So it has a 3.42 star average rating. I mean, that's not bad. I didn't read anything that was absolute trash other than Disorientation. Apparently people don't agree with me. But anyway, so the majority of people gave this 4 or 3 stars. So 35% gave it 4 stars, 33% gave it 3, and then 13% gave it 2, 3% gave it 1, and 13% gave it 5 stars. So, I mean, I enjoyed this, but I can see where people would be very turned off by it, so I don't think that's actually that surprising to me. Those are my mid-year stats for now. We'll see what happens in the second half of the year. Let me know down in the comments below, what are your mid-year reading stats? What has been the book with the highest average rating that you've read, or the lowest? Are you completely shocked by a book having such a high average rating when you despised it? Let me know down in the comments below. It's been great chatting with you all. I will see you soon. Bye.